Hello, everyone. Welcome to EMD Media. EMD Media is live on YouTube and Facebook right now. It focuses on understanding, measuring, and doing, and strives for contributing to the evidence-based, evidence-led, and evidence-rich discourse and decision-making in the Horn of Africa. Today, it's my great pleasure to have author, public speaker, and social impact entrepreneur Mawi Asgedom on Saving Tigray. I'll be chatting with Mawi shortly, but before that, I want to introduce Mawi to those who haven't followed him in the past. Mawi is active on Twitter. This is his Twitter handle, Mawi Asgedom, and on Facebook as well. You can see his handle at the bottom, facebook.com/Asgedom. On LinkedIn, Mawi Asgedom. That is his handle as well on LinkedIn. This is back 2021 to 2001 on Oprah, and 2005 Oprah had on O magazine her favorite guests, biggest shocks, happiest moments, and so on. And of the 20, she selected Mawi's. Her show with Mawi was one of the top 20 top 20 moments. And I just want to quote very briefly here what she had to say at the end. After I heard Mawi's story, that's the story from refugee camp in Sudan to Harvard University, she said, I wouldn't tolerate can't from anyone. I would say Mawi walked across this desert. What do you mean it can't be done? That's her quote in 2005. And you have a couple of websites where you can follow his public speech, what he does, everything about Mawi. That's mawi.com, mawi.com. And the second one is mawilearning.com. You can see a lot and learn a lot on his activities and so on. He's also celebrated by, like I said, Oprah, but this is another one, Essence. What attracted me here is the picture, family picture here, beautiful one, and also the 40 of the most inspiring African Americans list. So you have familiar names there from Denzel Washington to Will Smith, and politicians like Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, the late Colin Powell, all that. And Mawi is in this list, Mawi Asgedom. And this is Harvard, his alumni. He's an alumni of Harvard University. His story in the making. This is a very interesting coverage about one of their alumni. Family picture that was in there, and it's also in the book. But this is a list of companies, associations, universities very known, like his alma mater, Harvard University, Stanford University, and others who often invite Mawi for speech. Books, 2003, this is the first, I guess, but we'll not cover that in today's show, The Code. And 2008 of Beetles and Angels. When I announced this show, many people mentioned this book, how inspiring that was for them and for their life. And the CD, an audio CD, Nothing is Impossible in 2005. In 2011, The Success GPA. Very interesting in terms of leadership skills, all that. And this, The Third Harmony, 2011 and 2013 in Spanish. I can't read that, but you have it there. I think it's related to the 2008 book, The Beatles and Angels, I guess. And the last book, from what I saw, is the 2014, The Five Powers of an Educator, How Educators and Parents Inspire Youth. And the author, the public speaker, and the social impact entrepreneur Mawi is my guest today. But we are not going to talk about that today. Today, we are going to talk about Save Tigray. One of his active initiatives the past year, I must say. So it's my great pleasure to have Mawi. Mawi, welcome to MD Media Show.
Wow, thank you, Getachew, for inviting me. You got my background all with the dates and the books and everything. I appreciate the time to be here. And like you said, what we really want to talk about is saving Tigray, doing some, hopefully, humanitarian work here. And I am grateful to everyone who is watching right now, Getachew. And I'm grateful to everything you're doing. I'm grateful to our guests because a lot of times I get asked to inspire people, motivate people, help people grow. And today, really, we're going to be asking people to step with us into darkness. And it's not an easy thing to do. As we all know, there's many wonderful, positive aspects of the human journey, the human experience. And yet, there are many things we've learned from history where human beings have done horrific things to each other. Everything from the Holocaust that we read about to other aspects of history. And often it's quite difficult, Getachew, when we have to confront this aspect of who we are as human beings. So we have this tremendous power for good, but we also have a tremendous power for evil. And there's no other word to describe what's happening in Tigray other than evil and horrific. It's why I've never done this kind of activism before, but when I saw what was happening, I had to step up. And so I want to thank the guests and everyone who's watching because it's not easy to learn about some of these things that you and I are going to talk about. It's not as fun as going on YouTube and watching your favorite artist perform a song you really like, or watching a comedy hour that you might see on Netflix, or watching your favorite show. We're going to be talking about how we can make an impact on some of the most vulnerable people on the planet right now. People who are starving, people who are being attacked by drones, people who are being raped, people who have not had electricity, fuel. And so I want to thank every viewer because it's not an easy thing to do. But Getachew, I fully believe as good people, as people who want to make a difference, we have to take time to also embrace and step into the darkness so we can bring light to it and make a difference and help others. And I personally believe that we all have a responsibility to leave the world better than we found it. We all got here because someone cared about us, loved us, helped us become who we are. You're who you are, a professor doing what you do because people cared about you, nurtured you, and developed you. And now, same thing for me. The story you read, you described about my background is only possible because of the love I've experienced from others, from my family, people who brought me light. And so I'm both. I understand that I have some level of. Usually I'm not as somber as I usually am when I present, when I talk, as I am now, because usually the subject matter is not this challenging. But I also thank people and appreciate that they're willing to go on this journey with us. And we're going to show everyone who's watching right now how you can make an impact, how you can make a difference, how you can be a light in the midst of tremendous darkness. And no evil lasts forever, and this one won't. And just like Oprah said in that magazine, there is no such thing as can't. We will find a way to save the people of Tigray. We will find a way to make life better. We will rebuild Tigray, and we are going to do that. So that's what I'm excited to talk to you about today, Getachew.
Great. Yeah, that's what we want. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's part of the game. So maybe let's start with your, the background of those who are watching for the first time. You never know, right? They might not have heard of about the conflict and so on. So can you paint a picture on the conflict and how Mawi as a person relates to that conflict and what's going on?
Yes, definitely. Let's get these slides up for a second, Getachew. So we'll get so I can walk them through a couple slides that I have ready that will there we go. Okay, so I said ending the genocide in Tigray, Ethiopia, Getachew, because there is an existing genocide. We're not trying to prevent it. We're in the middle of a genocide that's claiming lives. And for those that don't know, Tigray is in the northernmost part of Ethiopia. I have a map that I'll show very in a moment here. One of the slides that I want people to be aware of is this data just came out. I think you had actually shared it on Twitter yourself, Getachew. And Tigray is the second biggest humanitarian crisis of 2021. And if you look at the percent increase, 166% increase in the countries with the most people in need of humanitarian assistance and protection, that's unbelievable. It shows that the rate of change is devastating, but it speaks to the scope of the conflict in Tigray. And for those of you who are new, there's a war right now in Ethiopia. It's basically pretty much the entire country of Ethiopia, along with some other countries that are helping Ethiopia, against a region of Ethiopia called Tigray, where I was born. Tigray has about 6-7 million people there, depending on which numbers you look at. Ethiopia is a country over 100 million people, and this war has been utterly devastating to Tigray. And the phase that we're in right now, for those that don't know, is there's been a blockade and siege on Tigray, where and this blockade and siege on Tigray has prevented any kind of aid from entering Tigray. This is a picture that breaks my heart, Getachew. I have kids myself, but even if you don't have kids, this is a child that is starving right now in Tigray. He was in the news a couple of days ago, Serafiel. And the reason for that, that he's starving is there's a number of things that the siege is denying. One of them is there's no food coming in. So the region had already been devastated because of locusts and other things. But then over the year, during the last year, most of the agriculture had been destroyed in Tigray. So people don't have the ability to feed themselves, to grow food, because it was intentionally destroyed by the Ethiopian army and the Eritrean army. People don't have electricity or power, so they can't go to the hospital. They can't drive to the hospital. Even if they could drive to the hospital, all the medicine, when Tigray was occupied during the first phase of the war, most of the healthcare infrastructure in Tigray was completely and utterly destroyed by Eritrean forces, forces from the Amhara region of Ethiopia. So you're talking about an entire region that really has virtually no functioning medical system. One of the things that's prevalent among our people, as you know, Getachew, for example, is we have diabetes runs quite high. So think of how many people are dying of diabetes that could have been prevented each and every single day. My father had diabetes, and I saw how he struggled with that before he passed away. A lot of our elderly have diabetes. None of them have had access to medicine. It has been intentionally cut off, like from Tigray. The other thing that's creating situations like Serafiel is the drone bombings. The Ethiopian government has been able to get drones from all sorts of countries that have no problem in participating in genocidal activities. And that the drones have really been devastating because they haven't been targeting military areas. They have been targeting sometimes places of business, sometimes hospitals, sometimes, but mostly civilians. And so just on Christmas, it was devastating. Who would imagine, Getachew, on Christmas that civilians would suffer from drone attacks? Is incredible what we're seeing there. And so there's no way to describe what's happening in Tigray other than it is pure hell on earth. You would not wish it on your worst enemy, Getachew. It is, when I read about it, when I study it, and I'm a pretty positive person, generally, as you can saw from my background giving speeches. This last year has been a level of darkness that I have not been able to shake in my spirit. Because when I see pictures like Serafiel, I imagine my own child. I imagine the many other children out there. That's what empathy is, that we all have in our hearts, to care for others if they were our own kids, to care for others. Also, for me, I want all the viewers to imagine this, Getachew. I want all the viewers right now to just make a short list of 3 people that are close people to you. Maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your dad, maybe it's a son or daughter, maybe it's a friend. Now, I want you to imagine that for the last year, you've been unable to talk to them and communicate with them, and they live in Tigray. And every day you're hearing about bombings. And every day you're wondering, wow, that drone attack, I wonder if that killed my mother or my father. That drone attack, I wonder if that killed my niece or nephew who's in school in that area. That drone attack, I wonder if it killed my grandma. This is why if you talk to someone from Tigray, Getachew, you will notice there is PTSD all over them. Sometimes you might see them smile or they try to put on a good face, but it's terrorism basically. To anyone associated with Tigray, to endure this for over 430 days. This started November 4, I believe, in 2020. Till now, it has been a relentless, full court attack on anyone from a Tigray background, and I have never ever seen anything like this in my existence or been associated with it, which is why I had no choice but to pursue the activism Getachew. What am I going to say to God one day when he says, "Hey, Mawi, you had time, you weren't getting bombed and droned. Did you just ignore all that was happening and live your good life for yourself and be happy your kids were safe while you knew all these people were getting slaughtered and killed and you ignored that?" I don't think that's a conversation anyone wants to have with their maker, Getachew, or anyone wants to have in their soul. There's so many articles, Getachew, where they talk about how Ethiopia is deliberately starving its own children. In my view, there is a special place in hell for anyone who starves children intentionally while the food is waiting there. For viewers who are new, what's happening is the UN and other aid organizations are literally begging, saying, "I wish, please, I have the food right here. I don't want this child to die. I have the medicine right here. I will bring it to you. I will give it to you." And Ethiopia said no for over a year, kept them out, intentionally starving children. You know, people try to justify it, Getachew. They'll say, you know what? The people of Tigray have done this to us. There's a group in Tigray that was in charge for a long time called TPLF. For those of you who don't know, they'll say, well, TPLF had this crime, did this. They bring stuff up. I want to say it cleanly and publicly right now, Getachew. Anyone who thinks it's okay and you have reasons that you tell yourself for doing this to kids like Surafiel, you need to go pray and do some meditation and rethink your entire worldview. You're thinking like Stalin, who said you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. In this case, 7 million Tigrayans. Again, you're in a moral abyss from which your soul may never recover if you think that it's okay to do this to kids. And unfortunately, right now, Getachew, I hate to say this, unfortunately, there are many in Ethiopia who look at a kid like Surafiel and say, it's okay for us to achieve our goals. If this is what has to be, I'm fine with that. So that's been devastating to see churches, church leaders, pastors, folks who have done other humanitarian projects be okay with what's going on, Getachew. That has been soul bruising for me to watch, completely soul bruising. And then the final intro slide I have here for those who are new, Tigray, as you see, is up in the north there. That's where I was born. And my father's actually in the just north of Tigray, in a country called Eritrea. That's where he was born. And then so little Tigray that you see in green here has basically been withstanding the full might of the entire country of Ethiopia directed against it for the most part over the last year and a half. That means the entire apparatus of the state, the full propaganda apparatus. The state shut off all the electricity, all the communication, the banking, because the state can do that from the headquarters. All the diplomatic going to other countries and asking for drones, launching them against the people of Tigray. This small group of people, 7 million of us, we must ask ourselves, what did we do to deserve this? That no human being should ever have to go through, right? That's what's been happening, Getachew, for the last year plus. And I want to thank, remember I said we're going to step into darkness? This is what I was talking about. Viewers, thank you for enduring this. You can feel the pain in the way I'm describing it. And we have to find a way out of this darkness, Getachew.
To your point here, Mawi, this is a five-sided pentagon of blockades that you are referring to. I mean, if you look at transport blockade, humanitarian blockade, communication, you said about not able to talk to people there. I haven't talked to my mom and my sister who are in Tigray since June. I have no idea. I have no clue, what they are doing, if they are alive, because I know they need medication, they need food. I have money here, but I don't know how to reach them even, right? And you see the financial blockade. I know university professors who cannot access their bank account because the blockade is about bank service as well, right? People who are even working for the federal government from Tigray never been paid for months, no salaries, nothing. So you are pointing that, but like you said, people argue that, okay, you know, there are a number of actors here, like you mentioned, the Ethiopian government, or if you want to be specific, the Amhara regional state, Afar, Eritrea. Why advocate for Tigray? Why Mawi? I gather you are proudly, you know, happy about being Ethiopian, being Eritrean, of course, American, right? So why advocate for Tigray?
Yeah, and to underscore your point, thanks. That's a great question and something that's really important to me. In my book of Beetles and Angels, the original cover, the one you had up, was the latest cover my publisher released on the anniversary. But I actually, in the author's note at the beginning, I specifically make a point, even with this book, to say, in the spirit of peace, I've taken great pains to leave politics out of this book. I pray that my brothers and sisters from Eritrea and Ethiopia will find no bias in my writings, for I love both countries equally. I grew up hearing stories from my dad about how awesome Eritrea was. And he told me so many wonderful things. And I have deep love for the country of Eritrea and the people of Eritrea, and experienced a lot of kindness from different regions over the years. I have tremendous love for the people of Ethiopia, and I've experienced kindness from many different groups in Ethiopia along my journey. And I think this idea that one group should always hate another group, should always have a grudge against another group, is an evil we must remove from Ethiopia. For no other reason other than, look at the map. That's your neighbor. Do you want to live in for the next 200 years with our kids and our grandkids are always looking for the opportunity to chop their other person's head off? Like, is that what we want? Because that's what's going to happen. Like, you can have eternal grudges that never get resolved, where what we're seeing now is just a prelude for the next time one group gets an advantage. That is no way to have a country, a region, a people. And so we have to find a way to elevate the discourse so we have genuine love and respect for one another, regardless of our backgrounds, right? And if we're unable to do this, Getachew, we're going to find ourselves in this perpetual state for years and years and years. It might be Tigray now, it'll be a different group next time. It'll be a different group next time. So why have I support? Why have I advocated and really tried to speak up on behalf of Tigray at this time? Something I've never done before. And the reason for that is, it's not showing the slide on there for whatever reason when I advance it. There we go. Okay. Is one of the first things I saw from this conflict, Getachew, when I was trying to study it and learn about it, because same thing as you, I have friends and family and all sorts of folks back home in Eritrea and Ethiopia that that I think about, I'm concerned about. And beyond that, I just have love for the entire region to want to know what's going on, right? As I know you do. And I saw right away that there was a communication blackout. Okay. And there was many articles about this. I have a couple of the articles here. You know, Ethiopia refines the art of the 21st century war zone blackout. So while all this is going on, the Ethiopian government is taking tremendous effort and pain to ensure that aid organizations are operating in the blind, that no journalists are getting in there. And what I generally have learned in my life is, people are so aggressive about hiding things and doing them in the dark, it's not because they're doing awesome things, Getachew. It's not because no one does that. No one does awesome, amazing things and goes to tremendous effort as a country to make sure no one knows about it. They do that when they're doing the worst things. That was my suspicion, my hunch. Also, this point, the reason I'm honing in on this is, if you were to Google Ethiopia, Tigray, Eritrea, and learn about this conflict, you might read about 100 different things, Getachew, and you can get confused very quickly. But not all viewpoints or variables are equal in a situation. So let's say there's 100 variables in this conflict. The flow of accurate information to understand what's truly happening on the ground, to me, is a top 5 variable for someone who really wants to help and understand. Because if you don't have good information, what are we doing? We don't. And so right now, what I saw early on was the Ethiopian government made sure that all the information was cut off from the Tigray side. They were only going to tell their side of the story. And then, we have a saying in Tigrinya, the rod of truth may bend, but it will not break. You can try to hide the truth, but it's going to come out, right? And all these articles started coming out. For example, these were refugees who had fled the initial ethnic cleansing when the war started, and there was a communication blackout, but they got to Sudan. And once they got to Sudan, they were able, because they weren't Ethiopia anymore, they were able to describe what actually happened. And what they described was shocking, unbelievable, terrifying, everyone's worst nightmare. People being slaughtered, people being raped, people, all sorts of horrific stuff. And this really angered me tremendously, Getachew, because I was a refugee as a kid. I fled Tigray as a kid and lived in a refugee camp in Sudan. And my dream and hope for Eritrea, for Ethiopia, was that we were going to limit that as much as possible moving forward. That we don't want kids to have to do that. Nobody wants to have to go be in a refugee camp, right? It's not knowing if you're going to live or die, not having a place to stay, not in your own country. So the idea that people were in the same region, in the same similar locations where I was, it just really bothered me, Getachew. Then the other thing that really bothered me was, if you go back and look at the conflict notes, you'll see within the first few weeks, there were about 50, 60,000 refugees because it was so bad, but then it stopped. And the reason it stopped was the Ethiopian government cut off the border because they didn't want it to turn into a refugee crisis, 200,000, 300,000, which would make Ethiopian government look bad and be a problem for European countries that didn't have space for more refugees. So I'm like, okay, that's a war crime. Now, not only are you slaughtering people, you're preventing them from leaving and trapping them. That's a war crime. Look it up, okay? And so that also, the data was very telling. You said you're a database, evidence-based. Go look back at the data. It shouldn't just stop right there like it did, but it stopped because there was some evil activity right there. That was my first kind of like, what's going on, right? What's happening? What's happening to refugees? What's happening? I couldn't, as you said, there was a communication blackout right away too, so you couldn't know what was going on. Then it got worse. This was the part where I think, as bad as it was, everyone couldn't sleep once they started reading this. They started reading horrific, like the news got out little by little. They couldn't stop it all from getting out, even though they had a communication blackout. Gang rapes of kids as young as 8, grandmas as old as in their 70s. People being locked up in slavery, sexual slavery. People being raped to the point they couldn't walk. People being told, you must cleanse your Tigray womb, your womb from Tigray, that it may never bear children again. Genocidal language. Again, if a human being can't muster empathy for what these women went through just because they're from a different ethnic group, which is what we saw, there was massive silence. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. There was complete silence from the Amhara group on this. There's complete silence from all these different groups. Nothing's happening. You know what? It's worth it because we're getting our way. This is a stain on the soul of the Ethiopian church that it may never be able to remove, that it did not speak up and advocate and put a stop to this. I'm a Christian myself. I got my Bible right here, Getachew, and that's not the kind of stuff a Christian should be supporting, okay? Like not at all, right? Let alone, forget Christian, nobody would support that, okay? No sane human being of any religion or without religion. This really got everyone angry. It made us furious. It really, the decibel level on the anger went through the roof. And I know I amped up my activism because the thought of this happening, and maybe naively, I thought we were all brothers and sisters, honestly. That was my naive sense, especially being half and half. Like a lot of the stuff was happening from Eritreans doing a lot of the horrific activities. And it was devastating at a soul level. So this is, by the way, one of the reasons that the TPLF, which is the group fighting against the Ethiopian armies, you could also call them the Tigray Defense Forces, they didn't have a problem recruiting because their sisters were being raped, their moms were being raped. They were being, if they stayed in town, some guys were going to come and just kill them and shoot them. And you saw they didn't even have as much support as they would have, because it became existential. It became, hey, we're all going to get wiped out. They're here to wipe all of us out. That's what it felt like. So people got to understand, that's what it felt like to be from Tigray. That's what it feels like now. Is you may not think it's true. You may disagree with some of my facts, but you can't disagree with what I'm about to say. Is that's how we feel. We feel like you're trying to wipe us all off the face of the earth. So guess what? Don't be surprised if we stand up for ourselves. Don't be surprised if we stand up for our kids, for our women, our men, our grandparents, that we may live and have opportunity. Because anybody with a heartbeat would stand up for themselves before someone wiped them out like that. So you saw this massive response from the diaspora. You saw the massive response. People like me who were an activist before were just so devastated. And by the way, it no longer became about your own family. I know you and I have talked about our own families. When a level of atrocity gets to a certain place, everyone's your family. And your mind can't process anymore. That's what happened in Tigray. That's why you don't even hear people talk about their families that much. They're just weeping for the whole region. They're just weeping for the whole region. Okay. So all this terrible stuff on sexual violence. We saw ethnic cleansing, Blinken talking about it. That's especially in Western Tigray, in other parts of Tigray. They were just massacring people from Tigray, right? Then this has been going on, but accelerated even in recent months. This is really the kind of stuff that just when you thought you couldn't be more shocked, Getachew, when you thought, maybe I've seen everything. Nope, you haven't seen everything, Getachew. Now they're doing World War II Nazi-level concentration camps. I don't think it's possible to find someone from Tigray who has friends in Addis Ababa who hasn't had friends or family rounded up and put in concentration camps. Literally, I'm not, for those who are new to this isn't hypothetical or some. Literally, every single person from Tigray has family, friends that have been put into concentration camps, that have been imprisoned. And we can't sleep about it. We can't send them money, like you said. We can't help them. And the idea of what people are going through for no other reason than they're from a certain ethnic group, and in many cases, Getachew, with no connection to military conflict. That's what really has angered so many people, is the value of a Tigrayan life over the last year and a half in Ethiopia is zero.
Very true.
Disregard, complete disregard for a Tigrayan kid, child, mother. We just didn't think it was possible. We didn't think people from our own country would treat us like this. And then they're surprised when some of us say, maybe we shouldn't be part of Ethiopia anymore. Well, why would we be a part of a country that invited a foreign country like Eritrea to attack us, raped us, starved us, drone attacked us, and now you're wondering why we're mad? So it's very difficult for us to understand the reaction that some people have. So like, have you been paying attention? I mean, what do you think about what I'm saying, Getachew?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, what you are saying is at the heart of you are saying about, not even talking about our own families. There was a time where I was able to talk to my mom after 81 days, and I was feeling guilty to say I talked to my mom, because I knew at that point there were many people who never talk to their mom because they are massacred, because they are dead. So your point of is not about small number and anomalies and so on. This is the normal, the new normal.
It is, yeah.
So it's I hear you loud and clear, Mawi.
Yeah, definitely. That's why even like sometimes when I'm feeding one of my own kids, I have like PTSD flashbacks of an image I saw, and I wonder, why do I get to feed my child and this other person's kid is starving? I'm not any better than that mother or that father in Tigray. Why do I get to have this interview with you in relative peace and safety and comfort? And there's folks who haven't had power for over a year, who have not had food, who've been eating bark off a tree and trying to find whatever grass they can find to eat. So it does really mess with you. All that led Getachew to me writing this article in the Washington Post, why the U.S. should call the famine and violence in Tigray a genocide. To your point about being evidence-based, I cited a lot of articles in my article, a lot of other data and evidence, because I wanted to make a fact-based argument. And the crazy part, Getachew, is I only cited 5% of what I could have cited. Despite the communication blackout, 8 organizations have been really brave. Journalists, some of whom are in jail now, have been brave to expose what they could. And also because it's so shocking and unbelievable, the world has paid some attention to it, because it's really unbelievable that the second most populous country in Ethiopia, in Africa, which is which is where the African Union is headquartered, and is supposed to be a symbol of peace, what Africa can accomplish, could be the #1 leader in genocidal activity in the 21st century of Africa, is beyond belief. Shocking, Getachew.
It is indeed. When did you write this one? Do you remember?
I think it was in October. So I wrote
October.
this in October, yeah.
Okay, great. The reason I'm mentioning it, because talking about Tigray genocide, the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, Foreign Affairs Committee in the Senate, Senator Menendez, spoke about exactly that on November 19th, 2021 on NPR. Let's play that clip.
Let's do it.
What we are witnessing in Tigray, what we are seeing is undeniably similar to what we saw in Darfur. And the world should not be willing to allow this to continue, ignore it, and turn a blind eye.
Well, we should note one former U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia has called this situation Rwanda-esque. It's also been noted that the Biden administration has stopped short of calling what's going on a genocide. Senator, you're the chairman of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. You know words matter. Do you believe a genocide is underway in the region?
Yes, and I have said so. And as we see a genocide unfolding, we need to do everything we can to stop it, and we need to call it as such. If the phrase that we use, never again, is to have any meaning, when a genocide is being committed, it needs to be recognized as such in the moment, not for history, in the moment. And then there need to be actions that seek to stop the genocide from continuing to take place.
Yeah, so this is powerful. I mean, it goes well with what you were painting for our audience, Mawi. So from here,
let me jump in on that real quick, Getachew. So in like 2005 or 6, I was invited by whoever was producing Hotel Rwanda to go to New York for the premiere. Don Cheadle was there. I was there with him, and actually, just gives you a sense of just kind of the kind of friendships I have. I invited an Amharic friend of mine who lived in New York to come with me. I didn't care if you were Amharic. I didn't care if you were from Eritrea or Tigray. And to this day, I just went to a wedding earlier this year in 2021 of a friend from the Amhara region, which is one of the main regions for those newcomers that's at conflict with Tigray. Because I do believe we should approach the world like that. I don't think we can carry these grudges forward. But at that Hotel Rwanda showing at the premiere, like I said, everyone was there. Don Cheadle, the UN. You would not believe the number of pledges that were made. Everyone was talking about never again, and how we didn't see it fully in Rwanda, but next time for sure we'll do it. And the saddest thing is that the world sees the Tigray genocide has been documented. It's one reason I wrote that article. It's one reason that the senator was talking about it. And the world has, to this date, completely failed. I want to call out right now the United Nations. I want to call out the President of the United States. I want to call out the entire world. And I want to say, there's a genocide going in Tigray. It's not convenient for you. You've been unwilling to take the actions to end it. And shame on you. It will be a stain. It is a stain on the soul of the UN, the African Union, and the government of the United States that it has not stopped this genocide. We don't want you to stop it. We don't want you to make a movie about it 10 years from now. We don't care about the movie. We don't want to see a Hotel Tigray, a hotel, all that. We don't want to see that. That's not going to do anything for Surafiel, who's starving right now. That's not going to do anything for the women who are being raped. That's not going to do anything for all the people whose lives could have been saved. If you're going to take the action, take it now when it matters. There's another expression that in Tigray that we have, which goes something like this: the dog barked after the thief left. Well, the thief is here right now. Okay, Getachew, get the thief out of here. Don't be barking 10 years down the road. Or we should have done that. Okay. And so that's, I love that you brought that up. That's powerful. And the world needs to act now, Getachew.
Mm. Yeah. So with that, I think maybe what should be done if people, after listening to you and watching this loud and clear, what's happening, these unspeakable, atrocities, what should be done?
Well, first is, again, I just want to thank our audience. We stepped into the darkness, and it takes courage to step into this darkness. It takes a desire to make the world a better person. And I want to thank every viewer right now for having the courage to learn about this, and also the global awareness to care about people you may never meet. Where I'm at, Getachew, right now talking to you. When I was in a refugee camp and I know it was going to happen to me, there were some people who cared about me across the world and said, let's give this kid a chance. I came to the States. They didn't know me. I ended up going to Harvard. I've tried to give back a lot of different ways. Well, that's the kind of paying it forward we have to do in the world. We have to care and love for those who don't look like us, who may not be in our immediate family, who may not even be in our own country. And Tigray, for anyone who's watching this, who wants to be the light, who wants to bring light to the world, I can think of few opportunities that are more compelling right now than Tigray, because the darkness is so intense. And the beautiful thing about light, Getachew, is even in the darkest room, you turn on a little light and it drives that darkness away. And we absolutely can do that. Sometimes, Getachew, when you feel hopeless, as many of us have felt over the last year, it can be easy to just say, I can't do this. A viewer watching might say, it's overwhelming, Mawi. What can I do? I don't even know much about Tigray or this region. Or, it seems like people have tried and they haven't been able to move the needle. Just because something is hard or difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try, particularly if it really matters. If something is really important, and saving 7 million people from extermination is important, avoiding another Darfur and Rwanda is critical for all our souls, we can't sit by the sidelines. We have to do whatever we can and keep pushing till we get there. So I want to thank all your viewers for being at this point where we can talk about now, what can we do? Play our small part, right? And together, it becomes very big. So the thing that is really having a lot of impact, Getachew, right now is there's no aid in the region. Surafiel that you saw right there, we can save his life. We can help him. If we were to get some food and medicine there, he might recover and have a wonderful life for years to come. Or if the aid continues to be restricted, he's going to wither away and die. The largest hospital in Tigray just closed. You know why? There's no medicine. So imagine if you went to the hospital in the US and you were bleeding, and they told you, sorry, we got no Band-Aid. And they said, well, I would like to see the imaging to see if my arm's broken. Sorry, we got no imaging or electricity. And they were to say, hey, I'm dying because of this infection. They say, sorry, we got no antibiotics. So you literally have to be in perfect health to survive in Tigray right now. Okay? Otherwise, you got nothing for you. Okay? So we need to let the aid agencies provide food, medicine immediately. Right? That is critical. So anyone watching right now, the number one thing by far is the siege and blockade of Tigray must be removed immediately. And to be clear, Getachew, to be clear, it is being intentionally put in place. The Ethiopian government, let's call it what it is. It is a big, fat, nasty lie. They're pretending like, no, it's not our fault. The people in Tigray don't want to eat. I mean, the people in Tigray don't want medicine. The people in Tigray have refused electricity. We've tried to give it to them, but they've told us, no, we prefer to starve. We prefer to die of curable illnesses. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I don't even know how these people make this stuff up, Getachew. It's unbelievable that you, even with a straight face, can say this stuff, right? But that's what they've been saying and lying about. We have to hold them to account and say, no more. No more, all that, no more of that. And this is, by the way, I put this date on here for a reason, December 22, 2020. They've been doing this for over a year. We're 2022 now. Another one, U.S. Genocide Expert to press Ethiopia on Tigray aid blockade. July 29, 20. This is an ongoing systemic strategy to exterminate 7 million people. And they're acting like it's not there. And I will repeat myself, for all the folks from other ethnic groups in Ethiopia, all the church leaders, all the different folks who are there, this may be your last chance to do the right thing. You didn't do it before. But now you can speak up and say, you know what, man, this has gone too far. I can't live with that image of Sir Raphael. Let those people have food. And if you don't, we're going to hold you accountable for it. We're going to remind you of it. And we're going to, it's going to be a stain on your soul and your reputation. It's already there, but it's going to only grow over time. So I encourage you, get to work and do the right thing. Anyone who's watching this, you might be sometimes Getachew. I'll say people from other perspectives will email me or sometimes even call me and yell at me, scream at me for an interview like this I'm doing. And I have a simple question for them. Do you have a problem with young Sir Raphael eating and not dying? Because if you do, guess what? I am your enemy. Okay? Because I'm on his side and I'm willing to stand up for him. And if me being on the side of a kid who's starving makes me your enemy, then you and I have nothing to say to each other. It's that simple. So you shouldn't even call me because that's how clear it is, right? That's how crazy people are, that they will call you and attack you for advocating for humanitarian aid and relief. Now, these drone strikes have made it so difficult, Getachew, that aid agencies can't even operate. And this really infuriated me. They are now doing drone strikes on refugee camps. Can you imagine? I'm trying to go back to my life. Imagine if my mom had died. I've had the pleasure of having my mom the last 30 or 40 years. If she'd been in one of these refugee camps with me, that Abiy Ahmed was drone bombing, I could have lost my mom. I could have lost my brother. I could have lost my father. Well, people have lost their mom and brother and sister. Again, this is what empathy is. When you see this, imagine it happened to you. And then you will truly understand. So what we have to do, there's 3 action steps I recommend to any viewer of any background. The first, contact your elected official and ask for immediate end to the genocidal siege and ask for a no-fly zone humanitarian corridor. So it's very easy on the internet to find your senator's contact information. In the US, for example, you're a congressional person. In Canada, I'm sure there's ways to do it. In every country, and you're in Canada, Getachew, I know, there's ways to contact your people. Speak up. When you have people like Senator Menendez who's doing the right thing, drop them a message and say, thank you, you're doing the right thing. But do your part. They pay attention. I've actually met and talked with many elected officials, including people who are in, and the reason I picked the Washington Post for my article was I knew that's the number one place many of them read those kind of articles, right? And that's why I picked that out of other periodicals I could done. But we have to do our small part, okay? The second is, look, I've been studying this. There's the people that I feel consistently are producing the most up-to-date and most trustworthy information on Tigray is a group called Omna Tigray. Omna, for people who don't know, means our tree in Tigrinya, Omna. And omnatigray.org, OMNA Tigray.org. I've been recommending them for a long time because they do a better job of activism by far than I do. These, and a lot of them are young people who are in their late teens and 20s who built this from scratch just to save their own families. And I am so proud of them for standing up and doing what's right, Getachew. And I encourage people to visit them, follow their newsletter, provide money if there's links there. And here's the key. Stay connected. 2022 is starting. What if people said, part of what I'm going to do in 2022 is I'm going to pick one cause that I'm going to check in on every week. I'm really going to make service and making the world a better place important. And I'm going to go visit Omna Tigray every week. Put it on your calendar. I'm going to see who else Getachew is interviewing. For people like me and Getachew viewers, we read about Tigray every day. Sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. and I look at what tweets are out there because I can't sleep because I'm thinking about it. We don't expect you to be at that level, okay, if you're not from Tigray, okay? But we do ask, now that you've made it to this far in this interview, take an interest in the people of Tigray. You know, I call my book of Beetles and Angels, Getachew, because my father told me there's some people in life that look like beetles. You want to step on them and crush them, pretend they're not there, they're like cockroaches. And the most beautiful thing we can do is to see all people as angels. And the process of that changes our own character, and we become angels ourselves and right now the people of Tigray are being treated like beetles, like cockroaches, like insects, being crushed and oppressed, like without any kind of precedent as far as I can tell. And we all have the opportunity to see Tigray as are people worth saving, are people worth loving, are people worth fighting for, are people worth advocating for. And when you do that, not only does it have an impact on those of us like Getachew and myself who are from there, I believe it changes your spirit and your outlook on life, because you can truly say, I was part of making the world a better place. So Tigray, for example, has lots of campaigns throughout the year where you can join in different social media things they're doing. They are an up-to-date source of information that you can have if you want to stay up to date. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel that Getachew has. I actually did a lot of research on previous shows before I agreed to come on here, and Getachew is A+. Okay, he has done some great interviews, and he has that professor's mind that's always looking to be as objective as possible, and I appreciate that as well. So we want to visit people like Getachew on this channel. We want to visit places like Tigray, and we want to keep advocating. And Getachew, the day will come when Tigray is free, and Tigray is going to need help rebuilding. And part of the reason it's important for people to connect with Tigray, to learn about what is happening in Tigray, is we're going to need some help. We're going to need some help to care for those kids whose legs have been blown off. We're going to need help We're going to need help. We're going to need to help those girls who were raped until they couldn't walk anymore. We may need to provide special vehicles or medical supplies for some of these people who, through no fault of their own, have had their bodies destroyed by evil people. And guess what? We're not going to forget about you. We're not going to leave you in that state. If God gives us any power, and he will, we're going to use that. We're coming for you for good this time, okay? We're not going to forget you. We're going to help you. And by the grace of God, that day will arrive sooner rather than later, Getachew. We can all pray for that. And I can speak for the United States of America, Getachew. A lot of people make the United States seem like this crazy place where the left and the right are always fighting. You know what I've experienced from visiting 40 out of the 50 states to speak and meeting over 1 million people? The United States is full of kind, wonderful people who would happily make a difference in the lives of people from Tigray. We have to share our story. We have to show them what we have to share the impact opportunities. But I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to be able to do tremendous good for the people of Tigray. We have to build that momentum starting now. So those are the action steps that I see being critical, Getachew. What do you think of those? Does that make sense to you?
Yes, a lot. It goes well with the understanding and the measuring and the doing. So it fits well with what we try to do at UMD as well. Maybe one thing that comes to mind is, like you said, there will be a day where we will, overcome this and so on. But then the hard work of rebuilding it faster, better, at all level, from the social to the infrastructure to everything, right? So any parting words in terms of wrapping up today? I'm sure many following us have learned a lot from today's show. They might want again, to take it to the next level. So hopefully you come back for another show and so on. But parting words for today.
Hopefully we'll have another show where you and I are going to educate people on how they can rebuild and help Tigray and Ethiopia and Eritrea be at a whole different level of goodness for its people and the world. That would be my dream, Getachew, that we'll have that interview on the other side of this darkness, okay? And we'll bring even more light than we could ever imagine, right? That's one of the most beautiful things in life, is to take a darkness and the evil. And while you can't rectify it fully, you can create new light out of it that never was there before. I'll share with people 2 thoughts as we wrap up. First thought is just a lesson I've learned on resilience and grit in my life, because we've all gone through hard things in my life. And there's been a few times, Getachew, where I almost gave up, where one was, for example, my closest friend, my older brother, was killed in a car accident. I've had other incidents like that have been very difficult for me in my life. And I found that in those times when I lost a lot of hope, the thing that I'm proud of now, Getachew, is while I was struggling in the darkness, I stayed true to my values. I continued to work hard. I continued to try to be a kind person. I continued to do the right things. And then what happened was life opened up opportunities and I saw new levels of light that I could never have imagined. For example, I don't have my brother with me, but I have a wonderful wife and I have kids, these amazing kids I get to know. And we don't always replace what we lost, but we can create new light in our lives. That usually, though, I found that it didn't happen in a few weeks. Often it took a year or two for me to really kind of rise out of that. I offer that to all the people that are suffering in the world right now, whether it's from people from Tigray, people who've suffered from COVID, other kind of things. When we don't have hope, have courage. Okay, have courage to do the right thing. Have courage and step into what you feel is right. We all know what's right in our hearts. Just because you feel hopeless doesn't mean you can't take the actions you take. That's what you and I are doing right now. You and I feel hopeless about some things when it comes to Tigray, but it's not preventing us from trying to find some level of courage to speak up and have hope in something we can't yet quite see. And when we think like that, what I've discovered in my life is often there is some light on the other side that you can't see right now that is 100 times brighter than what you think it will be, but you have to get there. So I want to offer that to everyone because we're all suffered in a lot of ways. And it's been very difficult for so many people. Keep doing the right thing. Second thing I'll share, this is a little bit different. One of the musicians that I came to know and love in my 20s, when you're in your 20s in the States, you collect a lot of different musicians you listen to, you go to some concerts, was a gentleman named Ben Harper, okay? And he's kind of like a bluesy, folksy kind of guy. And his first album that I think is a great album, it had an interesting title. It was called Welcome to the Cruel World. And I could actually identify with that because I lived 3 years in a refugee camp. I already had seen since I was a kid that the world could be cruel. I had to leave my homeland. I saw all sorts of things happen to people. Had a lot of problems when I came to the States. I saw how the world could be cruel, right? And we were seeing that we're seeing how the world can be cruel in Tigray right now, right? We're all seeing it. We're weeping about it, right? But you know what else? You know what he says in the song though? He goes, he says, "Welcome to the cruel world." He says, "I guess there must be more good than bad, or we'd all be gone." And always struck me as being really powerful in our world when we see so much evil. And the reality is, I think Ben Harper got it right. For all the evil out there, if there wasn't some good out there, we'd all be gone. We wouldn't have countries, we wouldn't have societies, you wouldn't have the university you work at. And that's what this is all about, harnessing the goodness in ourselves, in each other, in our world, and bringing that to bear on a situation where there's so much of that so much cruel that we see, and that's that should give people hope that when you're dismayed, when you're down, there's also a lot of good in the world. You're doing something good by having this show, Getachew, okay? And I want to thank you for that. People are doing something good by learning about this and doing the smallest thing to help the people of Tigray. And when I said we're going to step into the darkness, it was also an invitation to be part of the good in the world, part of the light. So I'd like to end on that note for your viewers is let's walk and step into that light, into being part of that greater good that Ben Harper talked about, that I think is why we're all here in the first place. So that's what I got for you, Getachew. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mawi. That is a very enlightening end of the show. And I do, once again, hope for that day you mentioned where we'll talk about startup Tigray, rebuilding Tigray, and beyond. Like you said, the people in the region, I totally agree with you. They are united in suffering, and it has been happening for, decades, and if not even more than that, right? So hopefully there is a day that's coming soon where we can talk about healing, about rebuilding, about reconnecting, so that these things don't happen again. With drones, with all these technologies not for feeding, like said, or healing Srafel, but for killing, starving, and so on. So I hope that will be over soon, and I really hope to bring you back on that positive note, Mawi.
Thank you, Getachew. We'll do it.
Okay, have a good one, brother.
Yep, and thank you, viewers. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been following us live on Facebook and YouTube. My great conversation with Mawi Asgedom, a public speaker, author, and a social impact entrepreneur. And thank you for viewing our program today. Please share, subscribe, like, so that many can access this important material and other shows that we do. I'll see you on Friday with a weekly H panel with our panelists, and we'll be talking about what stood out for them during the week and have an insightful discussion on what might be coming in the Horn of Africa. Your host was Getachew Asafa. Thanks for being with us today. Bye for now.